Just no grandmother is ranting about how selfish I am because I'm sad about my miscarriage on Facebook. My entire family is pretty terrible. They're all very fake and selfish. However, my grandmother takes the crown when it comes to spreading family gossip, giving terrible and hurtful advice, and generally just being a very bored and angry old woman. Since I got married, I have kept most of my family at a distance. This has been to protect my mental health mostly. Anyway, I suffered a miscarriage back in February. It was my first pregnancy and my husband and I were crushed. I wasn't planning on telling my grandmother about it, but she called 2 days after it happened, and I just broke down crying on the phone. She seemed concerned and came over to talk to me. She wasn't supportive, but she wasn't being terrible either. I'm still sad about my miscarriage, but I've been keeping my mind busy with my online shop that I run from home. Obviously, I have not left my house in months due to corona. However, my mom told me that my grandmother thinks I haven't left home because I'm dwelling in my miscarriage. Even if I was, isn't it my right to grieve how I want to? She has been calling me a few times this week, but honestly, I've been ignoring them. I don't really care to speak to her because of comments like those. I don't have the energy to try to explain myself over someone's delusional narrative. I was scrolling through Facebook tonight when I come across a terribly written Facebook status by my grandmother. It's very all over the place. Copy and pasted from Facebook. Okay, yes, you've had a miscarriage. I miss my mom every day. She took care of us. She was our rock and she never had a bad word to say about anyone, no matter what they did or how they treated her. That I miss every day. But my mother would not want me to sit here and let the world pass me point, not thinking of what I can do to make a difference, give in to my feelings, and not take care of business and uplift the Lord. I don't say that you're hurt and missing isn't great. I understandable. My mom had a miscarriage, so she never let define who she was. She did not have time to. She took care of what she had to, working and take care of kids and house. Point I did not find out until I was older and old enough to understand it. She moved forward, and I'm not saying she didn't miss the child that she miscarried, but she never let that define who she was or who she was to us. Be strong and live your life. Put your trust in the Lord and not in yourself. Get busy taking care of someone else and bring a little happiness in someone else's life. You will reap the benefits as well. And before anyone says anything, yes, this status is totally about me. It was written only minutes after she had called me for the 3rd time this week. I guess I don't know what to say or how to feel. I feel like she used something that I tried opening up to her about and put it against me. I'm just disappointed. Rant. Toxic relationship dynamics / age difference and being so very sick of misogynistic belittling. So, I grew up very close to Dave. He's my mother's sibling. He lived with us a lot during his 20s / my teens. We had lots of mutual interests that we don't share with the rest of our relatives. We are both also the only members of our family that continued to higher education. That will come up, and so we have a much more sibling-like relationship than uncle / niece. Also relevant is that Dave was molested by an older female relative when he was a child. We have spoke openly about this between us, but he remains with the stance that it has not affected him in his adult life. For reasons that will become clear, I don't agree with this stance. Due to these various factors, I have always held our relationship in high regard and given him the benefit of the doubt whenever he does some dumb shit. He's been married and divorced 3 times, went through bouts of binge drinking over the years, and has changed careers more than a few times. That's honestly about as problematic as he's been. Nothing so bad so far, Imo. Anyway, he was divorced a few years back, having not heard from him for a couple months after. Not that unusual for him tbh, but still, I called him to check in on him. He told me he had met somebody, but that he wasn't sure about it. When I questioned why, he said it was just something he had to think about. I put it down to being fairly recently divorced and just dropped it. Couple weeks after that, I went to see my grandparents. My grandmother says she met Dave's new girlfriend, then surprisingly doesn't say much about it, even after prompting. Not typical. She likes to gossip, and this would have usually been particularly juicy for her, since it was family gossip, and well, not to brag, but I'm usually her favorite audience. I stayed up later for a nightcap with my grandfather that night. Long story short, he let it slip. Oh, she's 16. Grandmother is embarrassed about it. She's Hungarian. Dave says her parents are alright with it. We don't understand really, but what do you say? It took me by surprise, but not wanting to preemptively react, I just said, oh, well, they're European. Perhaps they see things differently? Guys, I already know, that was idiotic. Anyway, once I return home from that visit, I spoke with Dave. He said he knows it sounds bad, but she is mature. He has known her parents for a while and it's basically been accepted by everybody. I still wasn't comfortable, but I knew if I said what I was actually thinking it wouldn't change anything. It'd just lead to an argument and probably several months of avoidance from Dave. In the end, after I discussed it with my husband, I concluded that it was likely a preferable dynamic for him because of his child molestation and prior failed marriages all involving an older woman than himself, and honestly just hoped it would end soon enough. How consciously was it being done though? I wasn't and still am not sure. Several months go by, I meet her. She's a nice girl, though she is the exact sort of 16 years old that you would imagine when you imagine a 16 years that is being told that they are mature by people several years their senior, regularly. Quite opinionated, prone to stubbornness, and overall, a very 16-year-old girl trying to act above her age and ultimately coming across young. This was when it hit me that I couldn't excuse this from Dave at all, trauma related or not. I didn't contact Dave for a while because, honestly, I was working through some of my own emotions that this brought up and wasn't sure how to approach my relationship with him at this time. Then they announce a pregnancy. Laura spends the next several months saying such passive and flippant things about being a mother is easy. She minds her siblings all the time and it's all going to just be so easy that she cannot wait. Baby becomes, and like everybody else already guessed, it isn't easy. The honeymoon phase is over and now Laura is 17 with a baby, struggling with motherhood, has no other life experience, is in a very toxic relationship that she doesn't recognize as toxic and still has her I know everything attitude in tow because she's 17. Laura starts to confide in me about her emotions and struggles with motherhood, and I do my best to make sure she knows at all times I'm a safe space for her to do so. I tell her regularly that mine and her relationship is separate from mine, and Dave's, and I will absolutely never share anything she confides in me with him. This has led to Laura contacting me regularly over the course of their relationship and me having a in-depth understanding of it. I hate it all so much. A few months back I had the pleasure of meeting Laura's father, Gary. Everything about how Laura had ended up in this relationship just made so much sense after meeting Gary. This man is probably my least favorite person ever. Laura's mother is more than a decade younger than her father, only speaks Hungarian. We do not live in Hungary, and so she relies heavily on Gary, and they have 12 children, of which Laura is third eldest. Laura's father takes misogyny to whole new dizzying heights. As any misogynist with children of both genders, he dismisses anything and everything any of his daughters say as silly whilst his sons are treated with nothing but respect. Gary has taken to FB posts to actually, me many times, often about topics I know I'm definitely more educated than him on. The slightly amusing part of this is that he doesn't know my background, education or current career, so he likely doesn't know what an ass he looks when doing this. I have a background in childcare, 2 scientific degrees, and currently work in a self-employed art-based industry. Gary has taken it upon himself to assume I'm a SAHM, and I haven't bothered to correct him. But funnily enough, these are all the topics he usually tries to correct me on, even the workings of being self-employed, whenever the topic comes up. Fun fact, regarding childcare, Gary once told me having 12 kids teaches you more about child development than any study ever could. In our most recent visit, before lockdown, Laura's family were also there. I overheard Laura telling her younger sister, 13 years old, "Oh, don't go all feminist, God," so I asked what they were talking about. Basically, her younger sister had apparently been getting into pretty misandrist oratory with her views, so Laura was telling her take it down a notch. I told them feminism isn't a dirty word and shouldn't be confused with misandry. Neither of them had an understanding of the actual definitions of feminism, misandry or misogyny, so I explained it all to them and encouraged them to support themselves by supporting feminism. Gary heard this, called me pedantic, then tried to explain to me what pedantic meant. Seriously. During this same visit, before we left, I also got into a discussion with one of Laura's younger brothers about science. He was talking about being able to self-teach marine biology from YouTube. Honestly, he was dead serious. I told him no. If he was serious about wanting to learn something, then he should go to study it correctly, especially science. Saying that even if you use YouTubers at all to help, you need to make sure you are learning from reliable sources, etc. Gary piped up again and literally laughed at me for trying to talk about science. He went on a 30-minute rant about how universities and the like are all ruled by interest groups, and how there are plenty of reputable scientists to learn from on YouTube that are being prevented funding because they won't bend to agendas. Then told me that I shouldn't be discouraging his son when I have no idea what I'm talking about. I almost got whiplash from keeping my husband from attacking this man at this point. This whole fucking mess is too much. I already see them as little as possible. I love baby Abby, and I do not want to do anything to strain my relationship with her father. I feel somewhat protective of Laura, but I just don't know what the hell to do in this situation anymore. I feel like I'm bursting at the seams every time I'm around any of them. Mine and Dave's relationship has been strained for a long time now, and honestly it hurts that he hasn't even really acknowledged it, but I've mostly disassociated emotionally from that relationship.